If you're going to try to get that moolah. In this video, I'm going to give you some information and examples on what to put on your Gilman Scholarship essay or any study abroad related essay. These gave me thousands of dollars to fund both my study abroad sessions. My first semester in Paris and another semester in Hong Kong. The exchange program, I got the Gilman Scholarship, was my first study abroad session in Paris, and I had never been abroad before this, but I didn't talk about that either because it's not a very unique trait, especially in America. It's so common for Americans to have never left the US, so I wouldn't talk about that either unless you're gonna mention about how you're gonna overcome it and how it's not gonna stop you and how you're gonna honestly make up for the ignorance that you have because you've never left the US. So shout out to my university's writing center because I probably would have emphasized it a little bit more. In fact, I actually started one of my essays with it, and then thankfully I went to the writing center and they were like, maybe you shouldn't. And I was like, okay. A big question that so many undergraduate scholarship essays ask is the challenges you're gonna face. And this is definitely included in Gilman, phrased in some way. If you've never been abroad before, I honestly feel like you can be a little more specific on the challenges that you're gonna face. But if not, then definitely be talking about how not ever leaving the country before is not gonna be a challenge for you because you've already been doing this, this, and this. One of my examples was that I was already talking to strangers that went through the same thing I did, going to different countries, and then even people that went through a similar program or the same program to just get their advice and learn anything and everything I could from them because I've never experienced life outside the US. My reason was different. I talked about how I was a first generation college student, which Gilman loves, and the challenges I faced, especially being being the child of Vietnamese refugees. They aren't very fortunate enough to explore more areas of the world. If they leave anywhere, it's just to go to Vietnam. And I've never been to Vietnam either, which is so sad, well, until this year. But I talked about that, and because they've only been here in Vietnam, I didn't know anything about Europe. So I had to talk to other people about it. And I think my best example was going deep into the files and finding someone I can talk to that went through my exact program, just so I had a better idea of what to expect because my parents didn't go to college either. So I have no idea on any of the official paperwork that had to happen because like you're going to school in a whole nother country, just the amount of paperwork you're gonna have to deal with. So I didn't have anyone that could really help me with the process of going to Europe. So I definitely talked about some of that and just all the difficulties that I was gonna face trying to study abroad in Paris as a first generation college student. The Gilman Scholarship has really great resources explaining everything they want from you in your application, and I'll try to link the ones I thought were most helpful in my blog post below. One thing they really want to understand though is your why and just your overall motivation for everything. The location you picked, the school, exchange school you're going to, or the study abroad program that you decided to spend your summer or winter at, your classes, and even your professors. Just try to mention as much as possible. When I was applying to the Gilman Scholarship, I was applying for my semester in Paris, France, and I have so many reasons on why I went to Paris because I don't know, that's probably why I got the scholarship because I just had so many reasons why, and I was just so confident in the fact that this is the place I was gonna spend my semester. The basis is the fact that I was so into fashion. I loved fashion growing up. I was like, I'm gonna be a fashion designer and all this other stuff, and then it changed like while I was in college, but I was still really into fashion, and it's the fashion capital of the world, and the fact that France is in Europe and it has easy access, easy travel access to go to the other fashion capitals that I had easy access to. And because I was always into fashion, I took French in high school despite any and all the advice I got to take Spanish because I live in Texas and it's so often spoken here, but I was like, no, I want to work in fashion. I need to take French. So I took French in high school, which is probably the only time I'm ever gonna use it if I work in fashion and go to France. Another reason is because Fashion Week. That was so important to me because I was like, I can go to every fashion week because I have easy access, and I actually did. So if you want more information on that, let me know. But if you know Chriselle Lim, she's also a YouTuber and like blogger, and she was the first one I ever followed, and I saw her there, which was so cool. I'm in one of her YouTube videos just freaking out because I had just seen her and gotten a picture of her. So maybe I'll link that. That shows both a personal and professional reason on why I wanted to go to that specific location. And I really encourage you to do the same. What you need to talk about for your exchange school is its ratings, if it has good ratings, and just honestly how it's perceived in the area that it's in. It just shows that you did research and know what you're getting into. I went to HEC Paris or HEC Paris, and it's the best business school in France. So I definitely talked about that, and they have really great connections into the fashion industry because it's the best business school. So I definitely talk that up. If you're not doing an exchange program, you're doing like a faculty-led study abroad, then do the same thing. You have to talk about why that program, and just like maybe even why that professor. But just talk about every single reason why you picked this and why it's gonna be the best for you. I don't have that much experience with the summer programs because the semester ones were more affordable for me. But Lynette Atkins, a YouTuber that I really love, I went to school with her at UT, and she talks about all things college. She went, and her experience was so cool. And I definitely recommend checking her out. She is such a cool person too. And I'm so glad I found her channel because she's awesome, and I kind of miss going to school with her, but it's okay. We had to go. So I'll link her channel below. She talks about everything beginning to end of college, even after college, and now she's dabbing into fashion, and I'm so excited because her fashion is so good. I love her style, and it's like, I don't think I could ever pull it off, but it's so cool to see that she works it. If you talk about the classes or the professors that you're gonna be working with, that just really shows that you took the extra step in your knowledge and your research so that you really are deep into this idea that you are going abroad. It just shows that you are so ready. You should honestly know the classes you're taking because you want them to help you graduate on time, you know, progress in your college degree. But for your professors, that could just be a word of mouth thing unless you are able to do adequate research on it. But I just heard like from people that the professors at my school were cool, or like they have really high qualifications. One of them was the like CFO of FIFA. I think that's a soccer company. I really don't know, but I in my essay I was like, CFO of FIFA? Question mark, exclamation point. So I didn't know that much, but it helped include just your whole motivation on why you want to study abroad. And this is not the place to talk about how you've never left the country, because honestly, you could just take an airplane ticket to Mexico, drive up to Canada, depending on where you are, or take a short flight to the Bahamas or something like that to go visit another country. But visiting is not the same as studying abroad. When you're studying abroad, you're a student in a whole nother country, so you're experiencing life there like another student. And you're basically living there temporarily. So that never leaving the country should never be your sole motivation to get the F out, because that's not an excuse. I know you want to get out because our current state of affairs is trash, but you have to have other reasons why you want to leave and experience life somewhere else. This is the place to talk about your story of ignorance. I mentioned using this in my video explaining how I went to 15+ countries in college and paid for it. because these scholarships were such a big way I was able to see all those places when I had never left the country before college. I'm gonna have a checklist form of my tips in my blog post, and this video is really just like the tips with examples. So my first story of ignorance was growing up. I lived in a really diverse area. There were the same amount of white people as black people, and then followed that was Hispanics or Latino, and then there were like a couple or a very low percentage of Asian Americans, but within that small percentage, there was still diversity. So obviously I was there, so there were Vietnamese Americans, there were also Korean Americans, Filipinos, and even Burmese Americans. And actually a really big population of Burmese Americans. I like grew up already thinking I was in a diverse place because I was, but I also grew up thinking that America had beef with China, like we did with Japan because of Pearl Harbor. So I was like, oh, that's probably why there's not really like Chinese Americans here, because we have a problem with them. And then I went to college. This is so embarrassing, but I'm gonna share it because I think it would really help people to understand, like, or find examples in their life. So then I moved to a whole new city for college. I went from Dallas, Texas to Austin, Texas, and that's not that far away. It was only like 3.5 hours away, and it's in the same state. But there I was like hit with culture shock that there were so many Chinese Americans. Like literally everyone I thought was Korean at UT was Chinese. And that's because I grew up where there were more Korean Americans than Chinese. Like there were like not really any Chinese Americans. The only girl I knew was like half Chinese. And then to be hit with so many Chinese Americans at my new school, I was like, huh? What? Oh my gosh. And like, that just shows how ignorant you can be staying in one place. And I was already living in a really diverse area, but it still was just one place. Like that one place doesn't show how the whole world is like, or how the whole country is like, or even how the state is like. It's not a good representation of what is out there. And I talked about that in my scholarship essay a lot, because I was like, oh, if I can move 3.5 hours away to find that a whole population exists that I thought didn't exist, I wonder what I'm gonna learn when I move to a whole nother continent. My motivation to go study abroad for a second time was actually related to my first study abroad, because I was always automatically assumed that I was Chinese, which is so crazy to me. I hadn't dealt with that since I was in elementary school or when I was working with elementary school students. Like, and then there were people older than me in France, like, oh, ni hao. Or like just people in places I was traveling to in Europe automatically thinking I was Chinese. And that was just so weird. That was probably my biggest culture shock from my first study abroad, because I was like, huh? How do you just automatically generalize all the Asian population to be Chinese? I was like, okay, I know there's not just one Asian ethnicity, and I wanted to learn about all of them. And what better way to learn about them than go visiting the countries where all these ethnicities originate, talking to the people that live there. You can see that even within the Asian American population, all the ethnicities are different, and that's crazy to me, because growing up also when I was, in one spot and a little dumb, I was like, oh, like all Asians are like me, right? Like they're poor, we don't have a lot of money and stuff like that. And then now I know why I didn't grow up with Chinese Americans or like Taiwanese Americans or anyone like that, really, because They are way more fortunate than people that came here or families that came here as refugees. Okay, so if you want to know, Vietnamese Americans really came here to flee a corrupt government, to be honest. My biggest example is Chinese Americans came here because like way before Vietnamese Americans were here for economic benefit, start businesses in the new world. There's a difference if you didn't know. But like now I understand why I didn't grow up with them. And it's kind of funny because they're not that far from me. I still didn't know they existed, even though they are literally in the next town over. I just was that ignorant because I only stayed in my own place. Please don't give me hate because this is honestly like just things that I've been learning. Talking about your growth is a reason why Gilman or any scholarship application is going to like you, because you're being vulnerable with them, which is what I'm doing with y'all, even though this is the internet, but still, like, sharing everything you've learned just shows like how much you've accomplished. I know like sharing this is kind of embarrassing because I'm like, oh, I was so dumb. But now like if I didn't see how dumb I was before, then how could I be even smarter now? Like if I didn't see any of that growth, I would still be at the same place where I started, still thinking that whole Asian population that exists everywhere doesn't exist, because that's just how dumb I was. But now I know that's not true. So that just shows my come up, okay? And you need to demonstrate that come up if you're going to try to get that moolah. Another thing that helped me get money for studying abroad twice is the fact that I really emphasize that I already do what they want me to do. For the Gilman Scholarship, this is going to be related to your project. So my project was that I was going to talk to middle school and elementary school students about my study abroad session, because I already talked to middle school and elementary school students at like career fairs or just different events they have that they invite me to. I already do that, and that's going to be my project because I already do it. And then you have to talk about how you would adjust it or change it so that it relates to study abroad or the scholarship, depending on what is a requirement. So obviously, like, I was going to talk to the students still, but I was going to mention or talk about how study abroad is related to the topic I was already going to be talking to. Another scholarship I applied to both times for studying abroad asked me how I would be a good UT ambassador abroad before and after. And so that was when I really emphasized what I did before, like the thing I was already doing. So it was a short essay, a short paragraph essay, and half of it was talking about what I already do. So for me, like, how I was a good UT ambassador before was that I really was befriending international students as soon or whenever I could. So I actually was in at 8 a.m. and there were a lot of exchange students from Egypt, Denmark, and China. And I actually, like the first day, I was like, hey, you want to be in my group for my project? Because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to learn so much from them. And I just like wanted to be friends with them because I had never been friends with anyone from those countries before. And that was part of the reason why I was such a good ambassador of UT before. If you have not heard of what ICE is doing for the international students this upcoming semester, please read up on it, sign petitions, try to contact people, and get this done because this is not okay. It's so bad. And I feel like every week I go talk about something new because our country is blah. Last thing is that your ideas are so much more important than your writing. My essay for the Gilman was not good. Like, I read it now and I'm like, I really wrote it like that. It had my ideas, so it talked about like how much I would benefit from going abroad, getting the scholarship and everything with the whole experience, but it wasn't perfectly written. If you guys want to see it, because you guys need inspiration or motivation so that you can actually like get it done, I need this video to get way more than like 5 likes. It's pretty embarrassing what I wrote, so maybe 30 to 50. Yeah, so if you want to see that, like it, and then I can publish it. If you're overwhelmed, just write down all your ideas or stories that are related to anything, study abroad, anything, and then try to organize it afterwards so that it fits what the scholarship is asking you. Put it into sentences and then proofread. For long scholarship essays, if you can't get to the proofreading, like maybe you'll be okay, but honestly, that is just the cherry on top of the cherry on top. If you want help trying to see what story is gonna be best or what of your ideas is gonna help with your scholarship, for any study abroad scholarship, I got all of mine, so I can help you try to get yours. Then I'll leave my contact information probably at the end of the blog post so that you can reach out to me if you want help trying to get that money. Okay. Please subscribe if you think this helped you, and give this video a like if you want me to publish that. Comment something that's gonna help someone write that dang essay. If you want photo inspiration for when you actually get to study abroad or travel, then follow my Instagram because I'm always posting travel content.